What's up? I'm Bea and welcome to my channel. If you are feeling a sense of deja vu, yes, I look exactly like this in my last video because I am filming 2 videos in one day, making the most of my time at home, off work, while the kids are at daycare. So today we're going to be going into chapters 3 and 4 from To Train Up a Child. And obviously, some of this is very heinous, but there are certain parts that I felt contained good advice and are good talking points to get into. So this one is a little bit pleasantly surprising, but I am still going to have my criticisms of Michael and Debbie Pearl. If you didn't see the first 2 parts of this series, I will be linking them down below. In my opinion, you could probably watch these in whatever order you please. I don't know that there's really any sort of like narrative storyline that's important to follow. However, there is a lot of controversy surrounding this book, To Train Up a Child, and a lot of controversy around Michael and Debbie Pearl in general. And I went into that in the first video, so maybe you would want to watch that one first, but you can always feel free to go and watch it after you watch this one. Today I have a little barefoot hard seltzer that I will be trying. I was at the gas station and there were a bunch of these on clearance for 99 cents, so I figured I'm up for anything. Let's give it a shot. This is the peach and nectarine wine-based seltzer. It's fine. It just basically tastes like sparkling wine. Like if Verdi had a peach flavor. Do they? I don't know. I have not had Verdi in a very long time, but that's what it reminds me of. Can't complain. So let's just get right into chapter 3, which is on parental anger. The first section is called No More Chances. As I was working on this book, a young mother said to me, "I get so angry sometimes. I treat my children so badly. They just upset me. Johnny is always picking on Mary and making her whine. I have to just stay on top of them all the time to prevent them from doing something they shouldn't. What can I do to overcome my anger?" Previously, the parents rewarded disobedience by saying, "Now, Johnny, I have told you not to do that. I'm going to give you one more chance and then I will have to spank you." As he continued to disobey, her frustration mounted. The parents had effectively taught their child that he could disobey until the parent's frustration reached a certain level. When he perceived that they had had all they were going to take, he knew it was time to back off for a while. He could return to his disobediences as soon as they cooled off. Sometimes, miscalculating, he pushed her too far and she would go off before he could comply. The mother's anger could be overcome if she would remove the cause of her anger. No, not the children, but their disobedience. Okay. Yeah, like, yes, you're telling him not to pick on his sister. He is disobeying. But you also have to understand that siblings are going to pick on each other and they are going to fight. Like, it's a completely normal thing. I don't know the age of these kids in this story, but you have to understand that your kids are going to pick on each other. It's not like they're sitting there thinking, "I'm going to stick it to my mom and pick on my sister even though she told me not to." It's, "I want to pick on my sister." So I just think we need to keep like child development and family dynamics in mind as we're talking about sibling relationships and the license to disobey. Eventually, she always got them to obey. It was the long, dragged-out, tense, and competitive prelude to their eventual obedience that was stirring her ire. The children were actually responding quite predictably. She had trained them not to obey until she got angry. I gave her a copy of some child training material that I had written. Reading it, she decided to make some changes. She made it plain to her son that he was not to tease his smaller sister. She told Johnny that if he disobeyed, he would be spanked for the first offense. The first spanking was a shock to Johnny. Mother was not waiting until she got mad. No warnings, no threats. She seemed to expect him to obey the very first time. After 2 days of consistently rewarding every transgression with a spanking, Johnny turned to his mother and said, "But mother, you are not giving me any more chances." The mother said, "That's right, you don't get any more chances. From now on, you are to always obey the first time." He had been using his chances to purchase disobedience. After 2 years, he now obeys the first time, and mother no longer gets angry. Okay. A lot to unpack there. The first thing that came to my mind when I read this section was what a disservice that does to little sister. Go on this journey with me. Yes, we'll get to Johnny's part too, but you are training your child unironically, I'm using the term training, but you're training little sister that she does not have to stand up for herself, that she shouldn't use her words, that she should expect to not be picked on. And yeah, it would be great if we like lived in a world where you could expect everybody to treat you kindly and fairly, but we don't. Sister needs to learn how to communicate when things are bothering her in a constructive way. Whining is not constructive, and if you just remove the thing that's making her whine, you are not giving her the opportunity and you're not guiding her through processing what's happening, letting her know it's okay to speak up, speak to him directly, be clear and say, please do not touch me or please do not tease me. She needs to learn how to stand up for herself. Number one. Maybe, I feel like that sounds kind of harsh, and maybe that might be a little bit of a controversial opinion, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say. But from where I stand, especially as a female, she needs to understand how to do that, because we do not live in a perfect world where everyone will treat her justly and respectfully in every situation. Now, as for Johnny, again, I do not know how old the kids in this scenario are, but I think it's unreasonable to expect a child to comply with everything you say first time asked. How many times do you need a second or third chance? Or how many times do you know that you're doing something that's hurtful to somebody and you don't want to hurt them, but you make a mistake or you make a bad decision and you want forgiveness? How many times do we need second chances as adults? Pretty often. Like, we need a lot of grace, and we need to extend a lot of grace because we're all imperfect humans. So expecting a child to comply first time asked every time is unreasonable. And while yes, at the end of the day, as a parent, you are the authority and you are in charge, I think it's prudent to respect them. Yes, your child needs to learn how to be respectful to you back, but we need to remember that they do have those wants and they have those desires. They are their own person. You know, you have to be collaborative rather than just telling your kid how it is about everything all the time. And here's one line that really sticks out to me. It says, "Parent, you cannot blame your children if you have caused them to understand that disobedience is only acceptable after several warnings, and then a threat topped off by an ultimatum, and finally a gesture of force." This is where it's kind of convoluted to me, because obviously you want your child to listen first time ask. Like, in most cases, you're not telling them something or asking them to do something for the fun of it. Like, there's a logical reason behind it. But they also need to feel respected, and they need to feel that they are their own person. So with the whole like Johnny thing, Johnny picking on his sister, he needs to understand why that's wrong. You should be having conversations with him about why it's not okay to treat his sister like that. How would he feel if his sister treated him like that? Maybe she does. Is her level of punishment different than his? There needs to be conversations about why the behavior is inappropriate. And I don't think it's a bad thing not to like punish your kid immediately for making a mistake. And I will say it's a mistake. Yeah, he's choosing to pick on his sister, but he's also a kid, presumably, like a pretty young kid who isn't really grasping the logical thinking part of it. That's why you need to guide him through it. And then this part is just ridiculous. Like, I don't even know what kind of commentary to give on this, because let me just read it to you and you tell me what you think. Next section is called anger. Parent, you have trained yourself not to discipline immediately, but to wait until your irritation builds into anger. You have allowed your motivation to be anger. But how can I stop being so angry? Simple. Discipline them immediately upon the slightest disobedience. Don't wait until it becomes a personal affront to you. The children perceive in your anger and frustration that the discipline is a personal matter, a competition of interest. You are viewed by the child much as they view a bigger child who is bullying them in order to get his own way. What do you call it? I just gleeked. What do you call it when you spank your kid after the slightest transgression? What do you call it when you won't let your kid go see their mom because they're sitting on your lap and they're gonna stay there until you say they can leave, so every time they make a move for their mom, you spank them on the back of the legs? Like, what do you call that? That's not bullying your kid. They are not being made to respect the law and lawgiver. They are simply being made to give in to a superior force. What do you call it when you spank them for the slightest transgression? And you expect them, you say, I'm gonna spank you until you get it, and you're gonna learn, it's gonna be the first time. Like, is that not them giving into a superior force? That's not them respecting you. If they comply, that's them not wanting to get hit. I'm gonna take it down a level. But do we not see, like, the irony in that? I'm sure you guys do. But Michael and Debbie, you don't see the irony in that? They feel as if you are committing a personal transgression against them, violating their rights. They see you as just protecting your own rights and trampling on theirs. I don't know. I could be totally off base with this, but in the 6 months that I've been parenting, I've found that generally there's always a reason for disobedience or bad behavior when you're asking them to do something and they're not wanting to listen. In most cases, there is a reason behind it, and it's good for them to be able to identify that and talk it out with you. That's just going to foster a healthy relationship with your kid. This is the last section in chapter 3 that we'll read. It's called, I Made a Child That I Don't Like. Look, kids are a lot. Sometimes they're not very likable, but well, let's just get into it. The reason you are angry toward your children is that you don't like them. Quote, oh, I love my children very much, end quote. I didn't say you didn't love them. I say there are occasions when you just don't like them for the simple reason that at such times they are very unlikable. It is impossible to like a whining, selfish, self-centered, spoiled brat. We cannot help approving of that which is good and lovely, and despising that which is ugly and unwholesome. God himself has such feelings. And then they reference Psalms 11:5, like just in brackets right there. And that verse says, the Lord examines the righteous, but the wicked, those who love violence, he hates with a passion. Okay, your kids, like, aren't wicked. They're just kids, like, learning how to be humans and functioning members of society. But, okay. We are involuntary, very fair about it. When we think we are ugly in spirit, we equally dislike ourselves. You must face the fact that there are times when you just do not like your own child. I have observed the sometimes intense dislike of a mother for her teenage daughter or son. You may say, but no one else dislikes the youth. If they had to live with him on the same terms as the parent, they would. Now, why is your child unlikable? You will not like the answer. You made him that way through your training techniques. You may say, but I have not instituted any training techniques. I just scold them when it gets too much to bear. Precisely. All children are trained. Their responses and actions are a reflection of their association with the principal caretakers. To neglect careful nurturing and training while trying to keep them in line through threat, intimidation, nagging, anger, and occasional outbursts of spanking is the most negative of training exercises. Yes, because according to Michael and Debbie, you should not have occasional outbursts of spanking. You should be spanking your kid for minor infractions to train them not to mess with you, I guess, not to test the boundaries, not to do things that are very healthy and normal for a developing child. It should be a daily occurrence. You should wear PVC pipe around your neck to let them know one slip up and that's what you're getting. Most automobile drivers are aware that the radar patrolman will usually allow motorists to go 4 miles per hour over the speed limit without issuing a ticket. Not in Arizona. You got a lot more leeway out here. Consequently, most motorists will drive 4 or 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. When you allow your children to be disobedient 4 or 5 times before applying discipline, you are training them to disobey. There is nothing cute or lovable about a whining brat. To allow a child to whine and disobey is to mold a personality and character that you will eventually find hard to like. By taking control and teaching them to control their emotions and to instantly obey, the child will be cheerful and pleasant. Let's read that again. By taking control and teaching them to control their emotions and to instantly obey, the child will be cheerful and pleasant. No, the child will be repressed as heck, and they will not come to you for anything. They will not see you as a safe space for anything. They will be cheerful and pleasant because they're afraid to act on their true emotions, to actually tell you what's going on. You're going to cause them to be either totally rebellious or super submissive and afraid to make you angry. Yes, your kids should respect you, but they should never have a fear of what's gonna happen if you're angry with them. Nobody likes when anybody's mad at them. People, I mean, in my case, I don't like when people are mad at me. With kids, though, like, you're their parent. They should not be afraid of disappointing you. Kids are gonna mess up. Kids are gonna make mistakes. And what would you rather have happen? Say, like, I don't know, your kid is 15 and you've had conversations with them about how they shouldn't be drinking. One, it's illegal here. Two, their brains are still developing and that could have an impact on that. Three, you get a bunch of drunk kids in a room together, maybe they'll have a good time, but maybe some really rough stuff could go down. Maybe a dangerous situation could come up. There's plenty of reasons that your child should not be drinking. But a lot of kids are still going to try it out. They're still going to maybe go to a party and get peer pressured or say, well, let me just try it. Let me just try it once. They're going to be curious. Kids drink. We know this. So if your kid drinks and maybe they're with friends who are drinking too, and one of the friends was supposed to be the person driving them home, or they were supposed to drive to that friend's house to have a sleepover, and they're feeling very concerned. That friend was supposed to drive, but they're drinking, and I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go home, and they can't drive right now. Like, should I just get in the car with them, or should I call my parents? Do you want them to put themselves in a really dangerous situation because they're so afraid of what you will do? Or do you want them to say, dang it, like, my parents told me I shouldn't do this. They're going to be really upset, but I know that they would want me to be safe. I want them to come get me. I can tell you what I would want. I'm like preemptively saying this because my kids are 2 and 3. If my teenage kid called me to pick them up because they were drinking or their friends were drinking and they felt unsafe, I would be so grateful that they felt they could come to me with that. Of course, again, you got to have a little conversation about that choice to drink was still not okay. But at the end of that night, I would not say anything. I would say, thank you so much for calling me. Is there anybody else you want me to take home? Like, are your friends okay? Are they staying here? Do you want me to bring anybody with us? Like, let's get everybody safe. And I would just be grateful that they felt they could come to me rather than putting themselves in a bad situation. The last few sentences are, then the mother will like her daughter as well as love her. After, the child will be cheerful and pleasant. The child reciprocates the mother's delight by loving and honoring her even more. They can both enjoy each other's company. The mother is rested and refreshed by spending time with her children. A lot of you also brought this up, and so I know it's in the comments, it's out there, people are talking about it. But we should also just point out, expecting kids to obey the first time is incredibly difficult in general. But then if you have a kid who's neurodivergent or has maybe a personality disorder, something like that, like anything going on, I cannot imagine the sheer amount of torture that it would be. You want them to obey the first time and get up and listen and da-da-da-da-da, like all these expectations for them when their brain is already processing things a lot differently than if you are neurotypical, then your brain would. Like that needs to be talked about. This will not work with kids who have special needs, kids who are autistic, maybe who have Asperger's, who are on the spectrum of any kind. Like this will not work for them. And it scares me to think about a parent trying to force their child who is neurodivergent to adhere to this. Just the torture, like it literally would be torture for that child. Or like kids who have gone through trauma, kids who come from foster care or who have lost a parent. Maybe their parents are divorced. They're going through a lot of big emotions. And I know that the idea is, like fundamentalist Christian parents who are like only raising their own kids and who will not get divorced and will not have traumatic experiences for their children. I get it. Michael Pearl is against adoption from foreign countries, so he's not thinking about that. He's not taking those things into consideration, but you have to. You literally have to. Even if a child hasn't gone through a trauma like any of the ones I mentioned, they still go through a lot. Now, chapter 4 is about tying strings, and honestly, there was a lot of stuff in here that I felt was pretty good. So, we're not going to necessarily have praise of Michael and Debbie. Not even a little bit, but I will agree with some of the points that they make. First section is many strings make strong chords. It says, there's a mystical bond between caring members of a family. I can look at each of my children and feel that union. It is as if we were joined by many strings of mutual love, respect, honor, and all the good times we've had together. The more good experiences we have together, the more strings that unite. Where two or more people are living together, their interests, opinions, and liberties sometimes clash. The strings that unite are often cut by selfishness, indifference, pride, self-will, and the like. Where there is not a constant tying of new strings, family members soon find themselves separated by suspicion, distrust, and criticism. The gap can now grow so wide that the two can become virtual enemies. When this happens between parent and child, it is a serious crisis. Unless new strings are tied, the two will increasingly grow apart. When a youth says something like, "My parents don't understand me," or "they don't care," it is a testimony of a complete cutting of all strings. And again, like, this analogy is great. Yep, we need to have mutual respect, love, trust, camaraderie to link us all together. And when you do break those bonds, the strings get cut and you have to work to rebuild them. Not much commentary I can give on this section, but I think it's a good visual to have when thinking about your relationship with your kids or even anybody else, really. So there's this section about paper hearts, and it's basically talking about how a dad told them the story about a victory and like retying these strings. He said that his first grader came home from school and became preoccupied drawing and cutting out paper hearts. And so it talks about how the dad, like, seeing his kid cut out paper hearts was like poking fun at him. And I don't know if it was for making hearts, for having a crush, for doing arts and crafts, because that's a female thing to do. I don't know. But he was like poking fun at the kid, and the kid did not respond well. The kid felt embarrassed and withdrawn and kind of distanced himself a little bit from the dad for a few days. And then one day the dad comes home and asks if the kid wants to go to the hardware store with him so they can pick out some wood and make wooden hearts together. And so the kid was cautious at first, but then once he realized his dad was serious, he was really excited. They went, they made the wooden hearts. The kid was able to give them to his friend, and things worked out well. And I think that, again, that's an important thing to do. Like, don't make fun of your kids. Some kids can take a little bit of light teasing, but especially when it comes to like crushes and stuff, I found that most kids do not like teasing about that. They do feel embarrassed. So if you are just lightheartedly poking fun at your kid and it causes an issue, it causes them to feel bad about themselves, you should find a way to make it up to them. Absolutely. And then it says, it is important that sons and daughters can trust their parents with personal, intimate knowledge. If there's a barrier in this area, when the time comes that the young man needs counsel, to whom shall he go? The feelings of a child are just as important and sacred as those of an adult. Always treat your children with respect. Never ridicule, mock, or laugh at your child's ideas, creations, or ambitions. Your kids' feelings are sacred. Always treat your children with respect, but also turn them into little obedience robots. The distance between this, like, really just golden nugget of advice and pretty much everything else that we have read in this book is astounding to me. How do you live in the same world with those two ideas? And then there's another story here that makes just an incredibly poignant point, talking about how two kids were fighting over a truck out in the sand in the backyard, and they couldn't agree who could get to have it. So the mom told Billy, "Give Johnny back the truck," and they're screaming at each other, going at it, whatever. Finally, he gives Johnny the truck, but then Billy goes inside. Like, he's mad because he had to give the truck back. He doesn't want to play with his brother anymore. He comes inside to, like, pout and whine. His brother realizes, like, yeah, okay, I got the truck, but, my brother's inside. Like, I would rather play with him than have won in this truck battle. So he goes in, he brings the truck to his little brother and is wanting to give it to him so he can come back outside and play. And the mom yells at Johnny for bringing the truck inside and getting sand all over. And the kid's confused because he's like, "I'm trying to be nice. Like, what do you mean? I've been playing in sand all morning. Why does it matter if sand's in the house?" The kid gets confused, feels embarrassed that he's being yelled at for showing sensitivity, and dumps the entire, like, truck over and gets sand everywhere. And it talks about how, like, in that moment, mom missed the mark. Mom missed a chance to praise her kid for realizing that he would rather have the company of his brother than be right or have the toy. Brother not only realized that, but then came in to make amends and try to get his brother to come back out and play with him. And yeah, obviously, as a parent, you're gonna be like, "Oh my God, there's sand on the floor. Like, why couldn't you just leave it outside? Why couldn't you just come in and get him and tell him he could play with it?" But in that moment, Your kid is showing emotional intelligence and trying to make things right. And so the kid should have been praised. But instead, he's reprimanded and yelled at. And so what kind of psychological impact do you think that has on that kid? Of, oh, well, I'm not going to try and apologize anymore. And maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe that's not going to be a very like consequential moment for that child. Maybe it'll just go right over their head. It won't have any impact on them. But it could. It could teach your kid, but this is how I'm treated when I apologize. I get yelled at when I'm trying to make things right. Well, maybe I just won't try and make them right anymore. I don't know. I mean, I think as a parent, you have certain moments with your kid where subconsciously you just stop and you think, they're probably going to remember this. Like, this is going to be something that they hold on to, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. The mom probably should have apologized for yelling and given him a compliment of like, that is so nice. I'm so sorry for yelling. I got a little bit frustrated about the sand, but you coming in here to get your brother and give it back to him is so kind and so sweet. You're a good brother. Let's go ahead and put the truck outside. Let's clean this up, and then you guys can go play. Or maybe you let it go and you just clean it up yourself. Up to you. Again, there's a section later in the chapter. Incredibly valuable information. It's called God Help the Fathers. And yea, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Ephesians 6:4. I cannot tell you how many times my dad would like tease us as kids and my mom would quote that to him. So it just kind of like brought up a funny memory because my dad and I have a very similar sense of humor, but I remember him like now we do, but I remember him riling us up a lot as kids and my mom would be like, Jeff, provoke not your children. Anyway, this goes on to say, a father who teases his child to anger can expect them to do the same to others smaller than themselves. On more than one occasion when scuffling with my boys, I have found myself having fun at their expense. That is when I was bigger than they. They remind me to play by the same rules to which they are bound. Don't laugh this off, fathers. If you make your little boy mad while you are having fun, you have created a bully. After all, weren't you bullying him? The wrath you provoked in him will be stored up until he can release it on one weaker than himself. That wrath can only be put away by his forgiving you. He cannot forgive until he sees your repentance. This is a beautiful point. The only thing I will say is that in the sect of Christianity, or the denomination of Christianity that our friends the Pearls are in, there's a lot of literature given to rape victims about how they need to repent for their part in their assault, and they need to forgive their abuser, and like move on and not feel any negative feelings towards him because they played a part in their own victimization, and also God would want them to forgive them. So just kind of ironic that it's like your son can't forgive you until he sees your repentance, but women, if you get assaulted, like, you need to forgive regardless and pretty much immediately and get over it. I know that's not what he's saying here, but it's related to his beliefs, so just kind of interesting. And then again, down here at the bottom, Father, if you care for your child's soul more than your pride, then humble yourself and ask his forgiveness, even if he is just 2 years old. Then become a patient father and husband. Spend time with your children doing things that are creative, that give them a sense of great adventure or accomplishment. You can't lead your child closer to God than you are yourself. Again, I don't know how you live in the world where you believe this, where you believe that your child's soul matters more than your pride, but you're going to tell people, parents, to be so proud and not humble at all that they are the ultimate authority and their child should be spanked or swatted or have their hair pulled or their hand snapped if they do not listen first time asked. Is that you being humble? Or is that you going on a power trip and saying, I'm the ultimate authority, I make the rules, what I say goes, no matter what you are feeling? But again, 100% you should apologize to your kids. I apologize to Beans. She's 2. She was like messing with the covers on the outlets the other day, and I turned around, I saw it, I freaked out. I was like, no, get away from there, and like yelled, and I could see on her face like she wasn't trying to do anything wrong. She was just messing with something interesting. And so I got down and I hugged her and I said, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to yell at you. I should not have yelled. That scared me. Please don't touch those. I'm so sorry. I should not have yelled at you. It's important to get in that habit of recognizing when you overreact or when you do something wrong, because your kid is a human. So you should apologize if you do something wrong. And then again, it talks about how you should like go about repairing those strings if they're cut. If you've broken your child's trust or been too hard on them or just done something that you can tell has upset them and they're pulling away. And in the last paragraph, it says, the strongest cord of discipline is not found in the whip. Rather, it is in the weaving together of strings of mutual love, respect, honor, loyalty, admiration, and caring. It is the difference in being led by the Spirit and being under the works of the law. The law gives us direction, but only the Spirit of grace gives us power. If you will cultivate fellowship with your child, you will have such cooperative compliance that you will forget where you last left the rod. Why in the entire first chapter are we talking about the whip rather than cooperation? Why in even chapter 3 is it Johnny disobeys once and he gets spanked? I truly don't get it. Humble yourselves. Don't expect total compliance. Figure out how to make your kid feel like valued and like they're important and special and loved. There are a few other stories. Some of them are like personal anecdotes from Michael's life, and they all kind of like just demonstrate the same thing, so I won't go over them again, but it's all about how you should facilitate camaraderie with your kids. They also talk about how kids are introduced to God through you, and like you don't have to be perfect, you just have to do your best. Like if you set the example for them, that is good enough. And yeah, your kids will be introduced to faith from you. And this is where it gets into like my personal faith beliefs, but like if you make a mistake one time, God doesn't come down and smite you. Like God doesn't punish you for every transgression. I believe that God is merciful and loving and wants us to live in a way that is kind and loving and gracious to others. God does not immediately come punish you for every mistake that you have ever made. And you doing that to your kids shows them that that's what God is. That's what God's about. And so they're going to be the kind of people who grow up and justify bad things happening because people made mistakes, or the kinds of people who view AIDS as like, oh, well, that's your punishment for being gay. Is that the kind of kid you want to raise? Is that too bold for me to say? I don't know, but I've heard a lot of Christians speak that way, so. Anyway, the last section is called You Can Tie the Strings, and it's just suggestions for facilitating that good relationship with your kids. It talks about, first and foremost, look at your child with pleasure and smile, enjoy their company, and demonstrate it by inviting them to go with you when there's no reason but their presence. For the young, look at pictures or read a book together. Sit on the floor and play. Take them on outings of adventure, excitement, and quote-unquote danger. These are good ideas. This is kind of like sexist or patriarchal, but it says, mothers, teach your children to do everything that must be done in the house. Make it all a fun experience. Don't use the very young as slave labor. They will experience burnout. Let them bake cookies at 3 years old. When you are sewing, let the young ones sit on the floor and cut out doll clothes. When you are painting, let them make a few swipes. Yeah, just spend time with them. Spend time with your kids. Fathers, by their participation, let the boys feel they are the protectors and providers of the house. If they can walk, they can carry in groceries or bring in firewood. Brag on their achievements. The idea is for them to feel that they are very special to you and to know that you find great satisfaction and delight in sharing with them. If you order your life so your children feel needed, they will desire to walk in harmony with you. Other than the moms teach your kids about housework and dads teach your sons how to be providers, like that part's a little bit off, whatever. These are all good things to do and ways to bond with your kids. So I'm trying to put words to the emotion that I'm feeling right now, and kind of all I can say is upset. This book has caused a lot of harm. Kids have died from the principles about physical discipline that are presented or alluded to in this book. People have been hurt by this book. But Michael and Debbie, if you are capable of looking at fostering a good, healthy relationship with your kids like this, why would you want to talk about like hurting them? And I know that they don't perceive it as hurting them, but objectively, you look at it, you're spanking your kid every day for the slightest thing. You don't think that hurts them? Like, you don't think that that has a negative impact on them? It's kind of flabbergasting to me, because we have this great chapter, solid chapter, And then you go into chapter 5 and it says, like, the first heading is, I love my baby too much to spank him. And so we're going right back to spanking after this just beautiful lesson in treating your children well. It really does not make sense to me, but I don't know if I want it to make sense to me because I don't want to be in the same mindset as Michael and Debbie Pearl if I'm being completely honest. But I guess only time will tell. We're only 4 chapters in. We're going to see this through. It's a lot. I'm probably going to have a lot of complicated emotions coming up because I feel them right now. So as we go on, I can only imagine they'll keep popping up. But for today, that's all I've got. Let me know what you thought of this video, what you thought of the passages we read, how you're feeling about all of this down below. And while you're doing that, if you would consider liking this video or subscribing to my channel, that would be incredible. And if you are subscribed already, thank you so much. I am so appreciative of you, and I love being able to just sit here, hang out with you, and talk about whatever. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to people, and I will see you in the next one.